Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to begin with some brief background information about where you went to law school.
I went to law school at Cleveland Marshall College of Law back from 74 to 1977, which is obviously part of Cleveland State University.
And so when did you pass the bar?
November of 1977.
And what kind of law do you practice? What do you do?
Currently, I'm semi-retired. I'm of counsel with a law firm in Lorain County, and I'm the prosecutor for the city of Amherst. And I do litigation.
And what other types of situations have you practiced in?
I began my legal career working with Ron Suster, who later became a respected common pleas judge in the county. And in August of 1978, I joined the office of John T. Corrigan, who was the prosecuting attorney at the time. I was there for 4 years. Then I joined a medium-sized law firm that represented Broadview Savings, which was the largest savings and loan at the time in Ohio. Was there for 3 years, became a partner. Then I joined a law firm called Carney and Broadbent. Jim Carney was the senior partner. And then in 1989, my junior partners and I bought the practice from Mr. Carney. And I practiced with those folks until around 2010. In 1999, I became the prosecuting attorney for the city of Westlake. And in 2005, I became the law director of Westlake. Those were part-time positions. And I maintained my law practice, which at that time was Reed, Mazenik, and Wheeler. And then I sort of semi-retired around 2012, and I continued to be the law director in Westlake until the end of 2017. I was elected, my term ended, and I decided not to run again and retired. And then in February of this year, I received a call from the law director of Amherst, Ohio, and he asked me to fill in for the rest of the year for his prosecutor who had quit, essentially. And I'm doing that now.
How long have you been a member of the Cleveland Law Library?
Since 1975, I was a law clerk for a small law firm in downtown Cleveland while I was in law school. And they had a membership, or it had a membership. And I was a member through that, and then since that time to the present.
Have you spent a lot of time here over the years?
Yes, especially in the early part of my career, even before then as a law clerk. As a law clerk, I was here literally every day. And then when I was an assistant county prosecutor quite a bit, my law office for both law firms was downtown, and this is where I would do my research. And then as time went on with computerized research, unfortunately for me, I spent less and less time.
Would you say a lot has changed at the Cleveland Law Library over the years?
A lot, physically somewhat. But in the old days, you'd walk off the elevator and the sign and desk was inside the law library proper where the beautiful mural is and the stacks are. In the back there was a courtroom, and I'm fairly certain that it's still being used as a courtroom. Back then there was a transition that was going on between the opening of the Justice Center, the establishment of probate court in this courthouse, which I think originally, in 1975, I thought it was on the second floor, and the use of this courthouse for domestic relations court. So they still had space here in the law library, I believe, in the back for a courtroom. And then obviously the changes relative to the expanded use of the fourth floor because you have more books, etc. And the computerized research has changed the law library quite a bit. But physically, beautiful murals still here. Beautiful benches are still here. The lights are the same.
Has the Cleveland Law Library helped you with any landmark cases throughout your career?
Yes, I don't know landmark is the right term, but I can think of a couple. The first one I'll refer you to is when I was an assistant county prosecutor. So I was, let's see, I joined the office of Mr. Corrigan when I was 25 years old, and I was there till I was 29. A couple of years into my tenure there, I was trying an aggravated robbery case. And, you know, back then, you had 4 or 5 cases set in a day that you might have to try. And in that instance, I had no victim. The victims didn't appear, or they never contacted me, etc. And I thought something was a little strange with this, and I thought maybe the victims had been either intimidated or maybe even were friends with the defendant. So when I came to try the case, before we picked a jury, I spent a few minutes talking to the victims, and I just had this feeling that they weren't going to be cooperative. They were going to change their story on the witness stand from what they had told the Cleveland police in their statement about the robbery. Shotgun was pulled on them by this defendant, etc. So I asked the judge, it was Judge Jim McMonagle, excellent judge, I told him that I wanted to call these witnesses as hostile witnesses. And there was a question as it relates to whether or not I could use their statement as substantive evidence as opposed to impeachment evidence. So I remember we took a break for lunch. I'd already picked a jury, so I had to do something because, you know, the defendant was in jeopardy. I couldn't, if I dismiss the case, it's over. So I came to the law library. I ran over here from the Justice Center, I thought ran. And I came up to the law library to do some research. And as I walked in to come to my favorite spot where I'm sitting now, I saw Judge McMonagle. He had some books in front of him. This is before computerized research. Well, and I did my research. Well, he had the books that I was looking for. So he was obviously doing the same kind of research, and, you know, kudos to him for doing it. So I think that shows you how valuable a resource the law library was at the time. It didn't have computerized research. You couldn't go on your computer and look at a case. You had to come over here and actually do it. In Landmark case, I had a case involving a fellow that was injured on the job. He was erecting scaffolding in the middle of February, and he was fell off the scaffolding, and he was a quadriplegic. And this was back in 1995, and at that time, the intentional tort against an employer was still a viable cause of action. Well, we filed suit, and the trial court judge granted summary judgment for the employer. So I remember spending about a week to 10 days in here writing the brief in order to overturn summary judgment. And it was a very complicated area of law at the time. It was changing. There was insurance issues involved. And I remember sitting where I'm sitting now for about, I'd say, a week to 10 days doing all the research that I had to do. We were able to have the judgment overturned in the Court of Appeals, went on to try the case, got a very large verdict. It was one of the top 10 verdicts in the state during 1998. So in terms of landmark case, it's pretty much as landmark for me as it gets.
What do you remember about our staff, past or present?
I remember Art Fisk and a woman that I thought was related to him, that was his assistant, that was extremely helpful. I mean, in 1975, you know, I'm a 23-year-old law clerk. I'm a second-year law student. And back then, it was so entirely different. You didn't have computerized filing. You couldn't check a docket by computer. You couldn't check a land title by computer. You couldn't do anything by computer. So you had to do it physically. To do research, unless you had a pretty extensive law library, which the small law firm I clerked for did not have, you had to come here and do it. And those people were extremely helpful. Whenever I walked in, if I had a question, second-year law student, I don't know what the law is, they would help. And I do remember Bob, who took over from Mr. Fisk. I mean, everybody here over the years has just been so helpful. Not just to me, but I'm sure that every lawyer comes in.
Are there any other special memories that you'd like to share?
Special memories. I remember coming here to do research on my first jury case when I was a prosecutor, which occurred in September 1978. I had already tried a jury case in February of 1978 before I became a prosecutor with another lawyer. It was a criminal case, an aggravated robbery case. But I do remember coming here and trying to find every book I could find on voir dire. Something, you know, they didn't teach in law school at the time. I've referred to where I'm sitting as my favorite spot because I felt if I had a problem or a legal issue that was giving me any amount of anxiety, I would come here. Amongst all the books, somehow I'd find the answers. Somehow I'd relieve the anxiety I think every lawyer feels when they have a problem they can't surmount in some way. I mean, I remember bringing my law clerks here when I was the law director in Westlake and telling them, you know, this is a resource. I know it's old, there's books, it's not a computer, believe me. There's a lot here that's extremely valuable. You'll never find it on a computer, ever. So.
Would you say a lot has changed in legal practice since you started your career?
Oh, absolutely. It's totally different. Totally different. Much more specialized. The general practitioner, that's a thing of the past. Totally. When I started, when I was clerking for Ron Suster, you know, you would do probate, divorce, criminal. You'd open up a corporation for somebody. Maybe you could even do a little workers' comp. Personally, you'd do everything. That's done. Can't do it. Just can't.
Is there anything you miss about the way it used to be?
Absolutely. It was. You were able to do other things because the law wasn't so specialized. Personal injury law, there weren't caps. You know, there wasn't this constant concern about, well, the settlement's going to be reduced by the subrogated medical expenses. It was easier, it was more collegial. It was just entirely different in that. It was much more personal. You know, I don't think there was this chase the buck attitude that I think prevails now.
Are there any lessons you'd like to share that you've learned throughout the course of your career?
Any lessons? I tell the young lawyers to be the law students when they were clerking for me at Westlake. I'd say, okay, a couple lessons. Never assume. Never assume. If you're not absolutely certain, make sure you become absolutely certain. Don't personalize your client's issues, problems, because if you do, you're not doing a service to your client, and you're not going to be a very happy person. You can't personalize it. You've got to step away from it. You've got to do the job and then let it go. Don't attach to it. And I told them, don't be afraid to do things. Don't feel like I don't know enough, I'm not experienced enough, I can't. You know, I don't have the background to do this because, first of all, a resource is here. The law library is one of them. Use it. And you know, trust your instincts and go ahead and do what you believe you have to do in a certain case, certain problem, certain issue.
Can you tell us how you conduct legal research and what tools you use?
Now I use the computer, I use Westlaw. If I want to use it in detail, I'll come here to the law library, which these days isn't that often because I'm semi-retired. But I'll do the research at Westlaw. Then maybe it's because I'm so used to using a book. And for me, it's easier to go to Oger than to use Westlaw. It just is, because I flip through the pages. I'll come here and use an Oger, and I'll try to make sure that I'm not missing something that maybe the computer's missed. I don't have the confidence in computerized research, in the search engines, etc., to solely rely on a computer. Maybe that's a failing of mine. I don't know, but I just don't do that.
What services that the Cleveland Law Library offers have you taken advantage of?
Well, you folks, I mean, your predecessors, right? The advice and counsel that I've got through the years about where to find something. Even just recently, Charlotte, who used to work here, I know she's retired, I used to come in and say, Charlotte, I need a book, I need something on such and such a topic. And she'd say, oh, that's what, and she'd spend 10 to 15, 20 minutes finding me a book. I'd be looking at something here on my, favorite spot, and she'd bring over another book. Maybe this will help you, that kind of thing. So, I mean, that's a service you provide. I also have gone to some CLEs in the past. I went to CLEs here. I use that service. But I'd say the service I use are you folks and the thousands of volumes of books you have.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that we didn't talk about?
Well, this is such a fabulous resource, and I hope that the young lawyers and maybe lawyers even who've been so used to doing computer research don't think that there's not a value here, that they've been trained to use the computer to the extent that they don't know and therefore don't think that there's anything here at the law library amongst the stacks, amongst the audiovisual materials, etc., that can be of value to them. I think they're really cutting off an important resource. My understanding of the legal research that's currently being taught in law schools, and this is from the young law students that work for me at the City of Westlake as clerks, is that it's primarily computer-based, 90%, 95%. I think that's a mistake. I really do. I think if you go to a treatise or a work that specifically is on one topic, or if you're going to try a case, you go to causes of action or proof of facts, that I'm not certain you could really find it as well using a computer as you could by going over the stack, thumbing your nose through the volumes, picking up the page, and just leafing through it. And maybe you're going to get a kernel of, how do I ask a question, an effective question to a witness about a certain area. And I think that's a real mistake. But if a person that's used to computer research isn't aware that proof of facts is there, or causes of action is there, how are they going to use it? So that's kind of my concern about the legal research of the 21st century.
Well, thank you very much.